Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Wolfram language design review about hierarchical entity types. So, where had we got to last time?
I was wondering whether this time we could, I rewrote the agenda and I was wondering whether we could go through it once quickly and then focus on some open question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the
So,
issue we are solving with.
so basically, this is the manifestation of the issue. Yeah? So we have a couple of separate domains and all of them do
I get it. Yeah, right.
the same.
So,
Yeah. And let's look at the usability issues just to see how having the same property in various domains affects us. Yeah? So if we have a city, Berlin, and we use the area property of glacier, we get, as expected, um, yeah, some failure. Huh? If we are looking for entity properties,
I
let's say,
understand the issue. I understand
yeah,
this issue, right? I mean, I understand what the problem is.
mhm.
So
Then
let's look at your proposed solution.
let's go further down then to the proposal. The proposal is to unify those properties that have the same meaning. Yeah? And the examples under the proposal show things that are additionally enabled by that.
Well, we talked about this last time, right?
Mhm.
We have this super entity type here, georegion, which means it's a country, it's a lake, it's a this, it's a that. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And these will be named sort of super entity types. They're
yes.
not really entity types. What are they? What are you calling them?
So your proposal from some years ago was property source types. That came up when we discussed how to extend our ontologies in two directions, specializations and generalizations. So we have done part one, the specializations, and this is basically the generalization. Yeah,
How does the specialization work? I mean,
yeah
that's
if
people who are
yeah,
astronauts.
if you go down a bit to property inheritance, I have two little diagrams that hopefully explain that. Yeah. And they look pretty similar. Yeah. In the first case, the child types, the specializations that we have already, yeah,
How
we
does
can,
it work though? What does it look like? I mean,
yes.
in
So we have species entities. All species have scientific name and some other common properties. Then some specific species like viruses have additional properties
okay,
that only apply to them.
okay,
Mhm.
so what about a bird? Let me give a bird. A bird has a wingspan, which isn't necessarily true of every. So this says species specification. How do I know it's a bird?
Entity type list. It's a property.
That's not my favorite. Entity type what?
No,
Entity
it's a property, a string.
weird.
We could have a dedicated function if that's wanted.
Oops.
Yes. So this bird is all of those things at the same time.
Okay, so I have a comment. When we
Yep.
say species specification here, we should give an indication that it's somehow more specialized because knowing that it's a bird is useful.
Hmm.
So that's the thing we should be talking about. Okay, so this is now, but now if I say this creature, and then I say, and does the autocomplete, does the autocomplete? No. Oh, that's silly. Why does the autocomplete in this case not, why is it not, well, is that is an autocomplete for this particular kind of thing, right?
Yes.
That is an absurd range. Is Keiko here? That
Yes, I'm here.
that is absurd. Look at that. 39,000 to 356 million golden eagles? I don't think so.
Yeah, I'll take a look at this.
Looks crazy wrong to me. Okay. But now, isn't there a wingspan? I mean, if I just say wingspan of golden eagle,
Yeah, the autocompletion is missing. I'll fix that.
what is this? What is this?
So that's actually the correct representation. It's a full entity property that has a qualifier in it, specifying what kind of golden eagle, male, female, or any of them.
By the way, somebody should note the bug here, whatever this is. I don't know why it's formatted like that.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Well, I don't understand. We've got a beautiful thing here. Why aren't we using that? I mean, this is ugly. All right, so this is a subcased entity property,
Yes.
correct?
So it's a property that only applies to that
Animals.
subtype. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that's the way that we're doing more specialized entity properties, but of course it didn't work here, which is no good. And I don't know what we would have in the autocomplete. We don't want to have all this gunk in the autocomplete. Don't we have a way of doing properties that is a similar kind of thing to this? By the way, I think it's a little bit confusing that our property things, they should sort of resonate visually with the entities, but I don't think they should look quite the same. Do you see what I'm saying?
You mean the entity types below, or?
No. I'm saying if I say entity properties of that, okay, these things, which are in fact properties, look an awful
Mhm.
lot like entities.
Yeah.
I recommend we change the visual appearance a bit. Maybe the border is different or something. Okay, I think that's a mistake to have them be the same.
Mhm.
They
Okay.
should resonate but not be the same. So if we can get somebody from design to suggest some things there.
Yep, I'll chase that down.
And your question about don't we have some way of indicating something like those entity type blobs for properties, I don't think is the case because the properties never have an indication of what entity type they are associated with. They may have qualifiers get indicated. And in the case of that entity property you had below for wingspan, that should be typeset, I would think.
Yeah.
But there's nothing, I can't think of a model for properties where there's something, that properties aren't typed in
I know.
their
But in
presentation.
fact, we're trying to make it so that they have to be less typed.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, it's not obvious. I mean, to me, maybe it's in the hover or something else. It's got to say what. I mean, here it does say that this is an entity property for taxonomic species.
So the issue is the visual-wise, if you pair an entity and a property and both name their type, which until now is mostly the same, then you have the type twice.
No.
So
We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
okay.
Right. The other thing that's really annoying is that the names of properties here are not the same as their string names. Am I making sense?
Yep.
And that's caused me endless confusion.
So yeah, so that two things about it. We are trying to have.
To be fair, there are a number of cases where that has been per your design when we've reviewed.
No, I
things,
know, because it's too
okay.
horrendous to have something
it.
different.
But we're trying to have them close. And the second thing is we're also trying to have autocompletion. That means when the common name is vastly different from the canonical name, we should also have the appropriate autocompletion.
I agree. That's a good idea. Okay. All right. So let's come back to this question of, okay, so this is the subcasing.
Yes.
And what you're basically saying is, well, the autocomplete is broken, and the natural language version will just automatically generate it, although it did the wrong thing here, right? Because I don't know why it's doing the statistical group thing, which isn't relevant to this. It's not relevant to this particular property.
But it is relevant to that. It's relevant to many properties in taxonomic species, at least as I understand it.
It
right,
is
Keiko?
relevant to many of them, but this particular one, it's not relevant. It's a particular species here.
I
There's
thought
no-
Tony explained
Hmm.
that there could be a difference between the male and the females.
Right.
Um,
It is the average
No,
of
we should be more politically correct for the eagles. Never mind. We shouldn't gender the eagles, but who knows? Okay.
But I mean that is the default qualifier, isn't it, Keiko, for a given
Yes, that's
property
right.
like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So why are we displaying it if it's the default?
Typically that's what we do. I mean, even if you resolve something like GDP for a country, I think there are qualifiers like it's nominal something.
Okay, can
that
I
you put in.
suggest that if we do not do in the NLP, in the NLU thing, if we can avoid it, let's not if it's a default, make this as clean as we can. Is basically the point. See what I'm saying? Right? If it's default,
Yes.
don't put it in there. Does that make sense?
You're saying it would be in the full form, but not in the display form?
No, I'm saying
The-
if it's the default, why are we generating it? This is coming from Wolfram.
Yes, that
right?
that makes sense.
Okay.
That means
Okay.
if the average of all is always the default qualifier, then we should just drop it. Yeah.
Right. Okay, there's 2 points here. There's that, and there's the question, if I can ever get this, there's the question of what that entity property format says without the qualifier. Right? And that entity property, I see. That's fine.
Yeah, right.
Fine. So this would look beautiful. If it didn't have this gunk, it would look beautiful. Right? And I also could say, maybe there should be a print form for this. Why not? Try and get a print form, wingspan, paren average or something. See what I'm saying?
I mean, that would just be the form that we use for property qualifiers anywhere. We have styles for that for other places. I'm not sure why that doesn't get formatted here.
Okay, well, so there's a bug, perhaps.
Yes, I look into it.
Okay. I mean, this right now, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Just wrong. So we'll fix that. Okay. So the issue is right now, here, we've already crossed the bridge of you say wingspan, and actually it's an entity property with a more sophisticated kind of entity type than you thought, right?
Mhm.
So what you're now proposing is instead of subcasing this to supercase it.
Yes.
I think that's a decent idea.
We can look at it in just a diagram below. Yeah.
I understand
which looks exactly the same. We have some concrete types like horse breed and goat breed, and they share things like a breeder and origin and whatever. Yeah.
I understand. You're just naming, what we don't have. We are not recording. In the case of a goat breed, for example, we're not recording. You're saying it's the, I don't know what the thing is, the breeder, except that's misspelled.
Sorry, my mistake.
That would be the breeder. Relevant for goat, that whatever. Relevant if you're
We're getting
making
into
goat
the food
cheese.
domain. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. But in any case, what we'd have for breeder would not have any goat breed. It would not be breeder arrow goat breed. It would just be breeder. Sorry, it would just be. See what I'm saying? It would be
Entity property of breed, comma, origin, or whatever.
yes. Right. So, a question that I have is it the right thing? So, I'm a little bit confused here. I'm going to make a comment suggestion. One possibility is we'd say we're going, breed. Okay, so this is the question. Okay. What am I doing? You're confusing me. Okay. All right. So the issue is your proposal is to not have anything that indicates that this came from a goat breed.
Correct.
Oh God, this was an email. Where is it going? Where do we want to send this? Where is this? This is entity. Really is much better.
Entity framework, I thought.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, but so your proposal is that that in control equals. Okay, so if I were to go, if I were to say Spain area, that will just work, right? And even in your new
Yes.
proposal, that will just work.
Yes.
But if I would, the full form of that would be Spain of entity property geo region, comma area.
Yes.
Okay. I think this looks fairly reasonable to me. Okay, this is a funky thing. I guess I'm liking this. Is there a gotcha here?
What? Sorry.
Is there a problem here? I mean, is there something which we think is not going to work well? Because this looks pretty reasonable to me.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's the overhead of design and naming, and
I know. So we got to come up with names for all these basically these. What do we? Okay, this is a property source type. Is that what we're calling it for the subcasing case? Is that
for this,
name in this language, or is that
that,
name just
that,
our descriptive name?
that's a child type because it's below the entity type.
No, I understand. I understand.
And
What are we calling it? Or do we name it in any way in the system or not?
we have entity type in the system that supports the normal entity types and the child types. So there's no distinction.
Okay, but if I want to know of taxonomic species, what are the child types? How do I find that out?
There's a property of that type object that's called child types.
How do let me do that. Okay, so if I have taxonomic species, so what am I doing? I'm saying
An entity type object.
entity type that, is that right?
Yes.
And then I say child types. How do I find the type of an entity? Isn't that entity type as well? I'm confused. How do I find the type of a golden eagle?
So if you're talking about the first argument, it's just entity type.
What is it?
Sorry, entity type name.
Why did we do that? Because we wanted to have this entity type object.
Yes, we needed accessor functions for the first and second argument, and they are entity type name and canonical name.
Okay. But now I can also get that as a property, presumably, the entity type. That's funky. Why is it entity type list?
Because in general, it could be more.
I don't understand. This thing has a definite entity type. If I do input the full form of it, it has a definite entity type. That's what I should be able to get out. Entity type
Yes.
list is a different thing. That's telling me what I can have properties. What
Okay. So we don't have a property for only the first argument.
we should have it. Entity
Okay.
type.
Shall we
the
call
entity.
it entity type name like the function?
I don't think so. I think we should call it entity type.
If
If
it was
it's
named,
called,
you'd expect the string out, right? You want to actually
Mhm.
get the entity object
That's what I want.
or the
Yes.
entity type.
Yeah,
Okay.
entity type name would be the string. Entity type would be the actual symbolic entity type.
okay,
An entity type list contains a list of things which are the child entity types for which there are properties for this entity. That's correct, right?
yeah,
That contains the child entity. So in other words, this here is presumably a pure, that is a, if I look at the full form of that, yes, that's exactly what I expect. That's what I expect for entity type.
okay.
I don't know what that weird lambda is. What's that weird lambda?
It symbolizes that from one entity type, multiple can come out.
But this is just an entity type.
It was meant to symbolize the hierarchy.
Color
It's
me
a
a bit
it's a
unconvinced.
tree, not a lambda,
Yeah.
right?
Obviously, I was just being silly.
Okay, sorry.
I was tweaking you. I'm a little unconvinced by that icon. I think we could think about it some more. Okay. Because for this case, it's pretty weird. I think. It's also, by the way, it's not lined up properly. It's floating high. It's a hanging tree. Do you see that? It's not, its baseline is not aligned.
Yeah.
Okay. So this entity type list would not contain like a georegion entity, would it? Or is there a notion of a source type entity or something?
The idea is to introduce new symbol, a property source type, if the name or whatever name we choose. And the question is, do we want to include it in that list? And I would say yes. Yeah, so we have one property to get all the types.
I'm sorry. What is the, okay, so hold on. I do not like the name property source type, even though I came up with it. Because I don't know how to parse it. It's got 3 words and I don't know how they group. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say super type, or I mean, it's like hypernyms and hyponyms and so on. It's
Or generalized entity type.
I was thinking of generalized, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like Uber type, but we obviously can't call it that. Higher type. Okay, so this is base type, generalized type. Okay, these are things with common characteristics. This is a thing that represents things with common characteristics.
Yes.
What should that be called? How about something with common in its name? I mean, there are all kinds of words like category and things, but that's not good.
Could or should it have property in the name, or definitely not?
I don't know. I think it would not be bad to have property in the name if we could figure out how to get it in there. How about something about shared?
Yeah.
What were we calling it before? Property source type. Okay, what do we need this name for?
So for a symbol that represents that type, that would be because we have already entity type representing part of the ontology, and property source types would be sufficiently different to require a different symbol.
Sorry, we have entity types, which are these subcase things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's an entity type.
Yes.
Why? But the first argument to entity property could also be one of these things, a georegion, for example, right?
Yes.
So why are we distinguishing these? Why aren't they just, I mean, just like the only point is, okay, so the issue is here we are hierarchicalizing explicitly. We're saying we know that every animal is a member of a taxonomic species, but we don't want to say, we could say, and we would be making a mistake by doing that, georegion arrow country, right? We don't want to do that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But if I might say so, if we did that, or at least conceptually did that, then it would make sense that, you know, here what we're doing is we're saying entity property has, you know,
Why don't we want to do that? I confess sometimes when we start getting into the weeds here, I find myself feeling like, how is
Because
the
then,
relationship
yeah.
between country and georegion different than animal and taxonomic species, especially since we're also talking about
yeah,
potentially introducing, it's not just because we think there's only one way to get to animal, because we could potentially still introduce what we were calling property source types that also sit above animal, but are
I
not
agree.
So,
taxonomic
So,
okay,
species.
so
let's focus on the first georegion goes to country. The question is, why would we ever want the country there? By
we don't
having
need it.
it,
We don't need
exactly,
it.
we don't need it, then why have it? Yeah, that's the argument.
Well, okay, we can elide it. Okay. If we want to elide it. But the
Mm.
whole point is the entity property is hanging off. Okay. So in this case, okay, in this case, if I've given an entity property and I say here scientific name, does that work?
No, because it's a property of a taxonomic
Okay,
species.
I think this is wrong. Okay. In other words, I think that that should work just as I think this should work. So in other words, what I'm saying is if you have a hierarchy here and you have a property here, find that part in the hierarchy to which that property applies. Okay. And ignore the rest of the hierarchy. But in other words, to be, you know, you want to save characters, you can remove the country thing here. But conceptually, then, what we're explaining is you are giving the entity hierarchy here, okay? And you give any levels of the entity hierarchy, doesn't matter which levels you give. The property that's here, the named property, will be associated with you know, in principle, there could be ambiguities, but let's ignore that for a second. The named property is associated with some level of the entity hierarchy. Do you see what I'm saying?
What do we gain by having the country there after the
Clarity.
georegion?
Clarity.
And what if we use that property on a city entity?
The one with the country. I think it should work.
Yes, that means for all computational purposes, that is ignored, the country.
That's correct. It's
Mhm.
ignored. It's ignored. Just like in this case, eukaryote animal is ignored. See what I'm saying? It's decorative. It's metadata. And by the way, if this is used and comes out as output, it should obviously, well, I mean, I understand your point. But look, I think this should work. I think the fact that that doesn't work is silly and will cause trouble. And if this works, this might as well work too.
So, but aren't we introducing unnecessarily aliases for?
Well, it depends on what the canonical form is. Look, maybe if you evaluate this, maybe when you evaluate it, if you evaluate, I mean, right now entity property doesn't evaluate, but it could. It could canonicalize to this. And this could canonicalize to, yeah, actually, this is a reasonable way to think about it, I think. We can canonicalize to the thing, right? We canonicalize to the thing that that property is actually associated with. But conceptually, we allow people to enter the whole hierarchy. I think this is a good idea because I think this lets one mix and match. You know, the hierarchy is gone when it canonicalizes. But to Alan's point, this is not incomprehensible, right? We will have this, what we were calling property source types, right? We will have these are sub entity types, and this is a super entity type.
Mhm.
I mean, in other words, we will be calling it entity subtypes, entity supertypes. And I think that's comprehensible.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we've got to name the entity supertypes. And by the way, supertypes is actually a pretty good name for this. I think it will not be confusing to people. Comments from Alan or anybody else?
I have no objection to those. They're more comprehensible to me than property source type, but whatever reasons.
My only concern would be if there's an object called entity supertype. Supertype of what? Okay, it's clear it's of entity types. Typically, the word supertype is more used in the sense of a relation like subset A, subset B.
Wait, was an object that's you mean an object that itself is
We never need that.
an
It's
entity?
just going to be an
Yeah,
entity
that's what I
type.
don't. Right.
It's just going to be an entity type. Like the georegion would just be an entity type, which happens to be a super entity, you know, an entity supertype. But okay, georegion is an entity supertype of country. Animal is an
Yeah.
entity subtype of taxonomic species.
So there was a reason why I proposed to have two different symbols, one for entity and subtypes and one for supertypes. It is because those kind of types can have different properties. For instance, the types and child
So
types.
what? Lots of things have different properties. Animals have different properties than fishes, or you know, than countries. So what?
I mean, the entity type, for instance, has
Child types, right? So if I say entity
yes.
type, okay, so it'll have entity type country, or let's say eukaryote, for example.
Let's use taxonomic species.
Well,
Then we
okay,
have
fine.
a child type tree property. Yeah.
Child type. Okay, great. So then we also have parent types. Why not? I mean, so what? That's fine. We have to decide between child and sub. Is this entity child types? Honestly, I think that sounds like it's for, kids type thing.
For
I think
instance,
subtypes, I think it'd be better to just call this subtypes.
yeah. For instance, this entity type has an entity type tree property.
Okay, well, that's nice for it. What is it called? Entity type. Oh, that sounds fancy. I remember
But
this.
let's use the tree for a moment, just for the argument.
I understand. It doesn't have a root of a root. Right.
Those supertypes, they are not tree-like.
They're graph-like. They're a graph
Yes,
going the other
exactly.
way.
Yeah. So that was my one of
So
my
what?
reasons.
So what?
Yeah.
So if you say entity type tree, it's a downward tree. I mean, look, this should really be called entity subtype tree, right? This is an entity subtype tree, which could also be, and then this is a entity type graph would go both ways,
Yes,
and entity supertype tree doesn't make sense. It's not a tree, right?
correct. Yeah. So with supertypes, we would have a directed acyclic graph.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's okay. Entity type tree is fine. It's the downward tree. And then this thing, I mean, we need names for these things, but yes, we have we have the backward going graph, which I think is lovely. Then this thing is in the middle of this graph. So actually it isn't backward going. All that happens is this graph gets another node up here, right? Like the georegion is up there, and there can be
Yes,
multiple things that feed into this. So it just doesn't happen to be a tree. It has
exactly.
multiple parents.
And in full generality, we can also come from a parent type down to a child type. That means animal could have some incoming
Yes, I
edges.
understand. Yes, that's fine. That seems just great to me. It's lovely. Okay. I think we got a good thing going here.
Okay, so we merge property source type or supertype into entity type, so to
Yes,
say. Okay.
yes. And
Great.
we need to get the subtypes, supertypes, child types, and so on, that naming cleaned up. But I personally think subtype and supertype is better than child and parent,
Yeah.
because I think it's a little bit vaguer and it doesn't suggest trees. Okay, let's just look at these. Different meaning.
So the
Same
last time
name.
you raised the question, so if a property has the same name in two different domains, do they mean the same? And here's a
Okay, they don't.
one possible
Right.
counterexample. Yeah.
Okay, do we care? I mean, isn't that exactly what we now have? In one case we have financial entity or something, financial
Yeah.
entity, arrow volume, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is what we have this for.
In my opinion, that's fine. That's not an issue.
I agree. Okay. By the way, can we flag to do a design review of things that return functions? I think there's better things we can do here
Yeah.
with formal symbols and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so I just want to, do we have a list of the things that need names like georegion and so on? Do we need, do we have a list of the supertype?
I don't think we have a large list. We've really just been, coming up with one-off examples like that to try to guide the design discussion. I don't think
Okay.
it would not be hard to come up with a list of those things if we've agreed on this design, which
I think we've agreed on this design.
I
this
like
design.
merging these two kind of separate branches a lot. And Ben had some discussions with people earlier today with chemistry team and talking to Jeff about astronomy and just trying to think about other cases where there are things that we can't do because we don't have some unifying entity type. So we've got more discussions going on.
Okay. Okay. Anything else we have to figure out here? This looks really good. Sorry,
I don't think so. I think
this.
this cuts through a lot of things that we've just been tripping up on because we had this slightly too complicated, two separate ways of looking at this. This makes sense to me. I think it's from here, it's much easier to go and come up with the specific things that we want to try to knit these things together. And then that's a matter of reviewing naming and relationships and just figuring out where the properties live. So we can continue.
And by the way, with this canonicalization idea, we really don't even have to worry about, the ambiguity of whatever. It's just going to turn into the canonical form and it's going to drop the irrelevant stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Good stuff, guys.
Yeah, good.
Okay, and I mean,
Thankfully.
just one comment. I mean, the NLU, the stuff that comes from, from NLU, we should make sure that that is appropriately canonicalized, just like that example we saw earlier. And I guess it should not contain any additional fluff.
Yeah.
Any additional, georegion, arrow, country, and so on.
Got it.
We have a couple of comments on our live stream about, to object-oriented programmers, this all makes sense. Yeah, boy. It's interesting how much this is. Let's just ponder that comment for 1 second, okay? Because, the world of object-oriented programming, which is particularly relevant for things like user interfaces, where there's a window with thises and that's inside it and so on. I'm just trying to think whether there's any other part of our system where we effectively have the same kinds of concepts. I mean, I know in System Modeler, for example, we have the same issue of and somebody should make sure that crew sees this design, because we have to work on, at some point, System Modeler is using the Modelica. I don't know if anybody here knows about that, but it uses, if you have a mechanical system or something, it's using the subcasing thing of blah dot blah dot blah dot blah to represent, the finger of the hand of the arm of the robot type thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we might be able to learn something in both. I mean, that design, in my opinion, is more primitive than this design. Okay, sounds good. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
great.
guys, and thanks.
Thank you.